It is Monday, June 29. Welcome to CGN News. A team of medical doctors led by Dr. Dwayne Cook, consultant neurosurgeon at Kingston Public Hospital in Jamaica, pulled off historic brain surgery. A Sunday Gleaner story described how the team conducted a craniotomy, removing part of the skull to operate on the brain of a patient, Marjorie Pearson. After a drill was used to open her skull, Pearson spoke and responded well to the team of medics as they removed a tumor during the hours-long procedure, even bursting into song at one point. Jamaica's borders will again be closed if the number of persons coming into the island who test positive for COVID-19 passes the threshold of 850 cases. When the borders reopened to Jamaicans on June 1, there were 588 cases of COVID-19 in the country. On June 15, when non-nationals were also allowed to enter Jamaica, COVID-19 cases were at 621. That number has since grown to 696. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says, however, that the number of imported COVID-19 cases has still not surpassed 2.5% of total arrivals into the island. Meanwhile, Mr. Holness has responded to a suggestion that tourists who test positive for COVID-19 upon landing in Jamaica be sent back immediately to their countries. He said the issue is being examined but would not be a simple process. The government of Barbados has announced that it will be lifting the curfew in place since March to stem the spread of COVID-19 as the island reopens its borders to accommodate regional and international flights. Speaking at a news conference on Friday, Prime Minister Mia Mottley said the lifting of the curfew would take effect from July 1 and that the airport will resume normal operations on July 12th with the arrival of an Air Canada flight. Mottley said that tourism is Barbados' core business and as a result the island could not keep its borders closed indefinitely. On Saturday, hundreds of Grenadians protested the beating of a black man allegedly by members of a white family after their dog was accidentally killed in the influential community of Fort Judy on the southern tip of the island earlier this week. The demonstrators were calling for justice for Evans Smith, a driver of a van who was dropping off construction workers on Thursday when the dog, who was barking beside the vehicle, was run over and killed. The owner of the dog, a businessman, is reported to have accosted Smith, informing him that he should not leave the scene. But the situation descended into an altercation with the man and three other members of his family, physically assaulting Smith in the presence of witnesses. The police later informed Smith that they were not going to press any criminal charges and that he should look to settle the matter privately or through a civil court. Plans to liquidate the regional carrier LIAT have been announced. Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, made the announcement on Saturday. He said a new entity will be formed and a meeting of all shareholders will be held to discuss the matter. Mr. Brown said that the COVID-19 pandemic has increased the airline's losses exponentially. In 2019, LIAT made a loss of about 12 million EC dollars. Overseas now, Iran has issued an arrest warrant for U.S. President Donald Trump over the drone strike that killed a top Iranian general in January, the semi-official Fars news agency reported Monday. Trump is one of 36 people Iran has issued arrest warrants for in relation to the death of Qasem Soleimani, commander of the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, IRGC, according to Fars, but the Tehran Attorney General Ali Al-Qassi Mir said Trump was at the top of the list. Mir claimed Trump would be prosecuted as soon as he stands down presidency after his term ends, Fars reported. Soleimani was killed in a U.S. drone strike at Baghdad International Airport in January, along with 5 others, including Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, the deputy head of the Iran-backed Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, the PMF. The strike, condemned by Iran and its allies as an assassination, raised the specter of further regional destabilization. Nigerian historians and government officials are trying to stop the auction of several artifacts from the country. The artifacts featured in auction house Christie's collection, Arts of Africa, Oceania and North America, are scheduled to go under the hammer in Paris today, with the most valuable expected to raise up to $1 million. Critics claim the collection includes artworks that were looted during Nigeria's civil war, as well as other pieces that were taken earlier under British colonial rule. Christie's deny that any items in the sale were acquired illegitimately. Controversy has centered around Lot 47, a pair of sculptures representing Alusi deities of the Igbo people, one of the three largest ethnic groups in Nigeria. The sculptures are expected to raise more than $280,000. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has apologized for saying earlier this week that there was, quote, no slavery, end quote, in Australia after his comments provoked outrage and accusations that he was ignoring the country's history of forced labor. Speaking at a news conference in Canberra Friday, Morrison said he was referring specifically to the fact that the first Australian colony of New South Wales was set up without the widespread use of slave labor. Morrison originally made the remarks during a radio interview on Thursday, in which he was discussing the Black Lives Matter protests in the United States and around the world, and calls to remove statues of British explorer James Cook, whose arrival in Australia paved the way of the first European colony. While Australia was never heavily reliant on slave labor like the American South, slavery was practiced in the country for decades in the 19th and 20th centuries in places such as the Queensland sugar plantations. Others have pointed to the practice of blackbirding, a process by which Pacific Islanders were taken from their homes, sometimes by force to work in harsh conditions for little or no pay in Australia. A high-profile Egyptian belly dancer, Sama El Masri, was sentenced to 3 years in prison and fined 300,000 Egyptian pounds on Saturday for inciting debauchery and immorality as part of a crackdown on social media postings. El Masri was arrested in April during an investigation into videos and photos on social media, including the popular video-sharing platform TikTok that the public prosecution described as sexually suggestive. The dancer, 42, denied the accusations, saying the content was stolen and shared from her phone without consent. That's it for CGN News. I'm Scott Wilson. Thanks for watching.